for many years on girls' issues, I didn't even really know much about Girls Inc. So we inspire girls to be strong, smart, and bold, and we do that through direct service and advocacy. We have 80 local affiliates around the U.S. and Canada, and they serve girls ages 5 to 18, primarily through after-school and summer programs. And the idea is to give girls the skills, the knowledge, and the opportunities that they need to overcome the barriers they face and grow up healthy, educated, and independent. So there's 3 key ingredients to what we do. One is the safe girls-only space. One is the strong adult mentoring relationships that they develop with the staff and trained volunteers. And the third is the research-based programming that we offer. And we offer everything from healthy sexuality to economic literacy, media literacy, leadership and community action, lots and lots of STEM programming, encouraging girls to explore STEM and take risks and try new things. So there's a whole range of things that we do, but all of that creates the outcomes that we're so proud of. And I passed around a sheet with a summary of some of our outcomes that you can look at later. We target underserved communities. Last year we served approximately 135,000 girls, and we are growing every year. 61% of the girls we serve come from families with incomes of $30,000 a year or less. And 77% of the girls we serve identify as girls of color. So the girls that we serve are facing particular challenges, and we focus our advocacy work as well on trying to address the needs of those girls. So we advocate with our girls for policies and practices that are going to address the barriers, as I said, and we focus in particular on the needs of girls in low-income communities and girls of color. And I just want to note that we are really proud that we provide a welcoming, inclusive environment for all girls, and that includes anyone who identifies as a girl, regardless of their assigned sex at birth, and anyone who's exploring their gender identity or expression. So that's an important point to us. Okay, so I'm going to go over some of the challenges girls face today in the event that you aren't familiar. And just a note about intersectionality, we really try to look at all the work we do with an equity lens and an intersectional lens and understand that different groups of girls are facing different barriers, and many girls are facing multiple barriers based on these multiple intersecting identities. And that's very important. So in deciding on what to do, we asked the girls. I came to Girls Inc. about 4 years ago. We never had a network-wide policy and advocacy platform. Mm-hmm. And in order to decide what issues we should focus on, we did surveys and we did focus groups with girls. We also surveyed girls' families, the staff members who work with our girls locally, board members, etc. And we asked them from a long list of issues, what are you most concerned about for girls today? And they could pick their top 3. The most widely held concern across all groups was this category of bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual violence. We included bullying in that because a lot of what people call bullying is actually sexual harassment, particularly when you're talking about girls. And this came as no surprise to us because, of course, we knew anecdotally from girls about the challenges they face, and particularly at the K-12 level. And yet this was all before Me Too went viral. This was the fall of 2016, right after the election. So we continued speaking with girls, speaking with our affiliates, and we adopted a policy and advocacy platform, which I handed out to you on a red card in the fall of 2017, again, right before Me Too went viral. So it was really interesting timing. All the issues that we chose to focus on relate to education, relate to girls having opportunities for their futures. The main areas are, as I said, bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual violence. The second one is a kind of a broader promote access to education and economic independence bucket, and that includes a lot of things which I'll mention in a moment. supporting girls' mental health, and then advancing reproductive health. These were all things that our network identified as top priorities. They also all overlap, and I know I don't need to tell this group that. Each one of these, and you'll see as we go through some of the issues, the ways that they are related. So some quick stats on, I just want to make sure I'm on the right slide, sexual harassment and violence. About 7 in 10 girls experience sexual harassment at some point in high school, and 1 in 4 girls experiences sexual assault or abuse before she turns 18. We know that youth who identify as LGBTQ are more likely to experience harassment, and 1 out of 9 female high school students reports being physically forced to have sexual intercourse. So it's a lot of data, and unfortunately we don't have a perfect source of data that has everything we look for, so we try to piece together different pieces from different sources. But overall, just know that high school girls are more likely than their male peers to have been physically forced to have sexual intercourse. Dating violence is a problem. We all know sex trafficking is a problem as well. This data doesn't even begin to touch on that. But when we talk about sexual harassment and violence at Girls Inc., we're usually focusing on the peer-to-peer sexual violence and the sexual harassment that students experience in school, in K-12 schools. Access to education and economic independence. School discipline disparities is something we focus on here. Girls of color are far more likely to be suspended than their white peers, particularly black girls. Girls with disabilities and LGBTQ youth are also disproportionately disciplined, usually for minor offenses, many of which are based on stereotypes, sex stereotypes, race stereotypes, some combination of the two, and the student's failure to conform to those stereotypes or something like that. Dress codes are a big source of school discipline disparities for girls of color, and this is something that a lot of our youth are very passionate about. The other types of issues we look at in terms of education access are access to non-traditional fields for girls, including STEM. We know that even though women are earning over half of post-secondary degrees, fewer than 1/3 of those graduates in STEM fields are women. Another issue we've done some work on is the DREAM Act. DACA being rescinded affects the girls in our network profoundly. A lot of our girls come from immigrant families. It's not just DACA, it's some of the other immigration policies that the administration has been adopting and promoting and enforcing have created a lot of instability in a lot of our communities, and it's affecting girls, even if it doesn't affect them directly by affecting their status, it's affecting their mental health. It's affecting their physical health because we know that's all related. It's affecting their educational access because it's distracting them and upsetting them, etc. So this is something we are very concerned about. In the category of mental health, I already mentioned immigration status, which can be a source of trauma. Some of what's going on in our communities today is causing trauma. Other types of trauma that girls face include, financial stress, harassment, assault, and abuse, systemic racism, systemic sexism, and other types of traumatic events. There's been a rise in the incidence of anorexia among young women ages 15 to 19. Here, this statistic, the second one, over half of Latina girls, over 1/3 of Asian American Pacific Islander girls, and nearly 1 in 3 black girls worry about a friend or family member being deported. Suicide rates are going up. More than 1 out of 5 high school girls seriously contemplated attempting suicide in the past year. And girls are more likely than boys to develop PTSD, depression, and other mental health problems as a result of trauma. Girls of color experience a higher prevalence than white girls of mental health concerns, including suicide, considering suicide, feeling sad, feeling hopeless. And then, we were just talking earlier about the school-to-prison pipeline. For girls, sometimes the pathway is a little different, but there is something that other advocates use, including the sexual abuse to prison pipeline or the trauma to prison pipeline. And we know that 80% of girls that are involved in the juvenile justice system have been diagnosed with a mental health disorder, 80%. And 71% of girls in the JJ system have experienced 3 or more traumatic events in their lifetime. So clearly, these are important issues, and we were working on some of the reauthorization of the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act when that was being reauthorized. There's still more work that needs to be done that would specifically affect girls and how girls are treated in the system, and so we'll continue to look at that. Reproductive health, the big issue here is that there's no federal funding stream for comprehensive sex education. And only 24 states and DC even require sex education at all. Of those states, only 11 and DC mention the terms consent, sexual assault, or healthy relationships in their sex ed programs. And a lot of states still have abstinence only until marriage programs required. And those are not just ineffective, but actually harmful. They're harmful in multiple ways. One is that they marginalize youth who, like LGBTQ youth, who don't fit into the norm or the stereotype about what couples should look like, and so they don't see themselves at all reflected. They don't learn anything about teen pregnancy prevention or disease prevention that's relevant to them, and they feel extremely marginalized. Another big problem that I think a lot of people don't think about is that when we teach kids that it's very, very shameful to have sex, and that they shouldn't do it until they get married, there's no other options, no in between. Girls who are sexually assaulted are afraid to come forward because there's so much shame associated with having been involved in sexual activity. And we've heard this from girls over and over again, that was their paradigm, and then when they were assaulted, they didn't feel like they could tell an adult, and so they just suffered. Didn't get treatment, didn't get help. So that is really, really disturbing. We think schools should provide comprehensive, medically accurate, age-appropriate, culturally sensitive, non-shaming, and LGBTQ inclusive sex ed. And it should include information about consent and healthy relationships. I wanted to share some survey results from Plan USA. They did a survey in 2018 on the state of gender equity for U.S. adolescents. And I know I just gave you a lot of statistics. I don't want to overwhelm you, but I think this is really interesting. So they talked to girls ages 14 to 19 and boys ages 14 to 19. The majority of the girls said sexism is a big problem in our society. Only 19% of boys think it's a problem, which is not shocking. 3 in 4 of the girls feel unsafe as a girl at least once in a while. 7 in 10 of them say at least once in a while they feel treated with less respect because they are a girl. The girls they spoke to perceive physical attractiveness as the most common trait or characteristic that our society values, when the boys feel pressure to be strong and tough. So that hasn't changed. A majority of the girls say they hear boys making sexual comments or jokes about girls at least several times a week. Almost half of the girls they talk to hear boys making these kinds of comments every day. And 1 in 4 younger girls, ages 10 to 13, hears these comments daily. And then another couple interesting additional, 7 in 10 girls feel judged as a sexual object in their daily life at least once in a while. Again, this is girls ages 14 to 19. 8 in 10 of them have had at least one friend who's been asked by a boy to send her a sexy or naked picture. And 1 in 3 girls says all or most of their friends have experienced such a request. So, I think we've made a lot of progress, obviously, and we're talking about these issues in ways we haven't talked about them before, but there's still a long way to go. And that's why Girls Inc. Launched a campaign a year ago, which I'm going to tell you about in a moment. But first, I want to just highlight other ways that we think Girls Inc. makes a difference. So I already spoke about our direct service and our pro-girl model, the safe space, the mentoring relationships, and the research-based programming. And the advocacy is the other piece. And we are doing more and more of it involving girls. As I said, we adopted a network-wide policy and advocacy platform. A lot of our affiliates are using that to do advocacy projects and programming with our girls. we have a teen advocacy council now. We have about 12 girls from around the U.S. who are in high school, and they serve for a year as members of the Teen Advocacy Council. They help inform our policy work. They help bring creative ideas to the work. They also tell us about the stories, about the things they're experiencing in their lives and what these issues really look like on the ground. And then we help build their advocacy skills. So we do trainings, we give them projects to work on, and it's been an incredible experience. Sonia here at the table is the leader of that work. And then at the end of the year, we've brought each cohort to DC to do visits on Capitol Hill and to do more training and sightseeing and bonding. And we are now on the 4th cohort. This has been an incredible experience. It's a small group, and we wish it could be bigger. Right now, that's the capacity we have, and we're hoping that we can grow this through our affiliates over time. But it's really helped for us to be able to have the girls' voices directly inform our work, and the girls who choose to participate, we get many dozens of applications for 12 spots, but the girls who choose to participate are particularly passionate about advocacy, and it's been an amazing experience for us and for them. So a year ago, we launched a national campaign called Girls Too, and our tagline is "Respect Starts Young." Recognizing that this was a top issue of concern, the hashtag #MeToo went viral, but there was not a lot of discussion about what this looks like for girls. There was a lot of discussion about Hollywood and the workplace and even campus sexual assault, but there wasn't a lot of focus on K-12 and how this starts so young. And we really felt that if we could get people to start focusing on prevention, we might actually be able to make a dent in this problem and address the cultural concerns and issues that fuel all of this behavior, so that we can, hopefully have a time where people can go to college and the workplace and not be bombarded by these problems. So we're now celebrating the 1-year anniversary of that campaign. We launched it last week, a year ago, and we have been trying to build awareness about what schools can do to prevent and address sexual harassment, the norms and the stereotypes that underlie sexual harassment and fuel those behaviors, the fact that these problems don't start just in college or the workplace, and that building a culture of respect for girls has to start at a young age. And we've been doing a lot of social media. We had an online pledge. So far, over 30,000 people have taken our online pledge. I handed out to you a paper copy of the pledge, but I hope that you all, after this, will go to girls2.girlsinc.org and will fill out the pledge and sign up for our email alerts and share the pledge online on social media or otherwise with folks, because the more people we get talking about this, the better. And it was a great way to kick off the campaign. We also did a series of teen talks last spring in 4 different cities around the country in partnership with our local affiliates. Those were panels where we had groups of youth, boys and girls, talking to audiences of youth about these issues. And then of course generating discussion afterwards with Q&A. And it was really powerful. One of the things that we learned is that girls are experiencing these types of behaviors every day, but they don't call it sexual harassment. They don't think of it as sexual harassment. And that's not something that's surprising, but we need to be really mindful when we talk about these issues, that we need to really educate our youth that this is inappropriate behavior that they don't have to stand for, and that their schools actually have obligations to address it. So we really enjoyed the opportunity to lift up youth voices through our teen talks. And for International Day of the Girl last week, we shared more girls' stories, girls' quotes. These are girls from around the country, not just Girls Inc. girls, but other girls who've taken our pledge, who've gotten active in the Girls Too movement, and they shared what it means to them, what kinds of things they've been doing over the last year as part of this work. And we pushed out a call to action in support of the Gender Equity in Education Act, or GEA. Some of you may be aware of it, but overall we were able to get 1,000 people to take action and send about 3,000 messages to their senators and members of Congress. asking them to support GIA. And we're continuing to push that. But for those of you who don't know, GIA is a bill that would get resources to school districts and schools so that they could better enforce Title IX, or comply with Title IX, I should say, and so that they can educate their staff, make sure they have a Title IX coordinator who's trained and who's prepared to address these issues with youth. It wouldn't, GIA covers all aspects of Title IX, not just sexual harassment and sexual violence, but this is a big area where Title IX coordinators can make a difference, and we know that many schools don't have them, or they have them, but they don't know themselves that they are the Title IX coordinator, or they know they are, but they don't have any training. I mean, there's a lot of problems, and Sue Klein has been working on this for years, but this bill is an important step. It would also create an Office of Gender Equity in the Department of Education. So one of the things we're working on now is creating pathways for youth to get more involved and really take the lead in this movement, because we know that those who are experiencing this are the best leaders and best able to come up with solutions, and we really want to see what the youth can do, and a lot of our youth are inspired by examples they've seen around the world lately of youth taking action. So we're really excited about where the campaign is headed. That's all I was going to share for today. Happy to take questions. This is my contact information, and I thank you for your time.